And we're live.
And now introducing Hopportunity Investors. Everybody. What's happening, guys? What up? Oh, all right. Whew. Hope everybody is doing good tonight. It is actually June, but this is the May Hopportunity meeting. I apologize, but actually had a baby last week, so no real apologies there. But yeah, that's why we are a week late. Baby came early, so Hopportunity came late. But guys, we got a killer night. Myself and Dan are going to share our stories about real estate, give you guys a little info on house hopping and house hacking. And I'm going to let Sean kind of roll since I'm going to be talking a lot later on. I can shut my trap for a little bit and let everybody else take over.
All good. What's up, guys? Sean Bowen, Full Circle Investment Group, wholesaling out of the box.com. Guys, welcome to Hopportunity. This is our virtual setting, and we do these once a month, and soon to be back in real life will happen. And look forward to seeing you guys back out in the different industry, like the different restaurants that we go to or the different breweries that we go to, right? And do these meetings again. Really miss those. So tonight we're going to get in here and talk about house hacking. And you've got two guys that are, one's kind of learning and getting going, and the other one is the guy that's been in for quite some time, right? So Alex and Dan are doing that tonight for us. So really what we're going to do is just let these guys kind of get going on it. We've got some presentations to show you. But yeah, hunker in. What you've got here online is some tags. The ladies will put them up for us where you can go live, ask questions over in the comment section. So if you make sure that there's a link the girls will set up for you, click on that, let Facebook see who you are. That way you can go over and put some comments in here and ask some questions or give us some feedback, right? Probably not going to bring anybody live right out of the gate, but definitely want some interaction with you over there in the questions and try to talk with you. So, yeah, let's get it going. Alex, let's talk about house hacking.
Before we do that, we must start with our cheers. All right. Everybody raise your glasses, your beers, what you got. May your castle be secure and your cup overflowing.
Whoop,
Cheers.
Clink.
And I Well, guys, we are talking about house hopping and house hacking. And I think pretty much if you've spoken with me for more than like 5 minutes about real estate, you've probably heard me mention those. And that's just because I'm passionate about it, because I think it's something that so many people can do. I think it's a great opportunity. And so we wanted to bring that as an actual topic tonight, so that hopefully somebody out there is able to utilize it. That's the goal. Let's keep building up that arsenal of options and ways to grow in your real estate ventures. So, yeah, I think, first off, I've got Dan Macduff here with me. He is on my real estate team. And one of the reasons I brought Dan on is his house hacking experience and the rehabs he's done himself. And he is, like me, a glutton for punishment. And I think you have to be able to survive like the craziness to really get into this game of real estate. And Dan's kind of got that. He'll share that a little bit with his story in a little bit later on. But yeah, I think Dan's going to have some great, focus for you guys on the house hacking side. The idea tonight was to kind of share our testimonies about real estate and then share some real life examples of clients that we've worked with using house hopping and house hacking to build a portfolio. We're going to get into some specifics. If you guys have questions at the end, we can dive deeper into those. But the real idea is just to kind of say, like, what are people actually doing to house hop and to house hack and to build a real estate portfolio? And instead of just talking about definitions and stuff, what does it actually look like? So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. I was trying to do it while not talking about it, but I'm not a good multitasker. So should pop up here in just a second. So guys, if I didn't mention, my name is Alex Winfield. I am a licensed real estate agent here in Hampton Roads. Dan Macduff's on my team, the Alex Winfield real estate team. And one of the things we do focus on is house hopping and house hacking. This is from a different presentation, which also focuses on VA loan optimization. But tonight, we are just going to really kind of dive into what house hacking is about. So house hacking, all right, I'm going to kind of go over the definition, then I'm going to tell you about how I got into this. House hacking is when you purchase a home that you will live in is a key part, while minimizing your costs or living expenses by renting out a room or an adjoining unit. So in this definition, you're minimizing your living expenses. All right, another definition of it is manipulating a property to gain value or increase cash flow. Basically, you turn a structure into a business, right? How can I manipulate this house to generate income for me? So that's house hacking. All right, and now we talk about house hopping. A lot of people haven't heard of house hopping. This is something I coined because I didn't feel like people were really getting the full greatness of what house hacking can do. So house hopping is when you purchase a house that you will live in with the end goal of holding it and turning it into a rental investment and then repeating. So basically you buy a property, you live in it, so you're able to use that primary residential loan. You live in there for about a year, which makes the bank happy, and then it frees up your eligibility to buy another property. And instead of selling the property you live in when you move, you hold that property and you add it to your portfolio. And then you do it again a year later. You pick up one property, you pick up two properties, and you pick up investment properties that way. So that is house hopping, building your portfolio by using your primary residential loan. So guys, the incognito genius, this is what I say about house hacking, that everybody misses. They're so focused on minimizing their living expense, which is usually for a year or two, right? So they buy a property thinking of what it's going to do for that first year or two. If you look past that, what is so great about house hacking and house hopping? It's the fact that you use a primary residential loan. And why that's important is primary residential loan is 0 to 5% down, right? 0 to 5% down. $150,000 house, you're talking a maximum, well, not a maximum, but you're talking about $7,500. If you were to do that with an investment loan, you're not going to live in the property. You have to put at least 20% down. If it's a multifamily, that's 25%. So you're talking about $30,000 down on the same property that Dan is putting down on the house he's buying. So you're going up against a competitor and they've got $30,000 in the game and you've got $7,500 in the game. So the thing that people miss about house hacking is that fact. Because what happens when you try to get into real estate investing? You run out of cash, right, to do your next deal. So this is a great way to minimize how much cash is out of pocket and how much risk you've got to do. You're leveraging bank money, minimizing how much money you've got to put into the deal. So the big picture here, guys, is to build a real estate portfolio. I think one of the things that we hear about all the time as we go to, different seminars and trig meetings and even Hopportunity meetings is, at some point, most of these investors want to build a real estate portfolio. How do you do that? There's a million different ways. But to me, house hacking and house hopping is kind of the average Joe's way to really build that up. So that's kind of the quick introduction to house hopping and house hacking. Now I'm going to just kind of share how I got into it on the house hopping side. So this is my house first house I lived in, 971 Ocean View. It wasn't purchased as waterfront, but it became waterfront. So let me tell you how that started. All right, so I bought in 2007. I bought above what I could afford. I bought a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, knowing that I was going to have a family. I bought with an adjustable interest rate loan, and I bought in a flood zone. So this is before I was a real estate agent. So there's no blame on anybody, but it's going to lead to what I'm getting at here in a second. So I was talking about the school of hard knocks, how Dan and I kind of have this similarity. Sean probably too. I mean, if you're going to be in real estate long enough. So I wasn't a real estate professional at the time. But let me tell you how this worked out. So I decided, me and my wife got married in 06. My beautiful bride, Stephanie. We decided to buy this house. You know why we bought it? Because it was near the water. That was like the one thing we wanted to do, is live near the water, like all beach kids want to do. And we drove up, and there's a really cool porch in the back that looks like a tiki bar. That's why we bought the house. So a year later, 2007, the market had crashed, and our house was $100,000 less value than what I bought it at. A year after that, our house flooded and got 6 inches inside. And that was a pretty tough thing for us to go through. You know, it's stressful. I literally remember, like, and I think this is the attitude you have to have in real estate. So me and Stephanie are sitting there, water's coming in the house, and we're like, all right, well, we got to get the dog off the ground, because we don't let our dog sleep on, like, lay on the furniture. So we're like, all right, Leroy, get on the couch, grab the 6-pack of beer, and just hung out. I mean, it was like, what do? There's water in the house. We can't stop it. So it was a pretty crazy experience. But what we did do is we ended up refinancing the house into a fixed mortgage rate. We ended up using the money from that insurance claim to completely open up that house that was all closed off and turn it into, more modern style, added a bathroom. So now it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Later on, we spent money to turn the attic to Cape Cod into 2 more bedrooms. So we turned a 2-bedroom, 1-bath into a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. But the story kind of continues using this house as the base is, this is before I knew I wanted to get into real estate. At this point, real estate was not my favorite thing for obvious reasons. So we kind of started feeling like we were stuck there. We couldn't sell the house because it was flooded, and we owed like $100,000 on it. So one day I called one of my really good friends up, who's also a mortgage lender and an investor. And I was like, Gerard, man, can you, you've got some rental properties in the area that we want to live in. Our oldest son was getting to be about school age, and we're like, man, we really want to go to a good school district. So I call him up and say, hey, can we rent a property from you? You got a place in Kings Forest. We'd love to live over that way. And he's like, Alex, why would you rent a place from me? Why don't you buy a place? And I'm like, dude, I can't buy a place. I own a place that I'm underwater on, literally underwater. And he's like, well, why don't you send me your stuff and we'll run the numbers on it. It turns out I could buy another place and hold my place. He's like, dude, just rent your place out and buy another place. And it just was like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know you could own multiple houses if you weren't a rich person. And I definitely was not rich at the time. It's like we were not making very much money. So it just didn't even ever occur to me. And that was kind of the first paradigm shift for me was, okay, wait a minute, I can buy another place. I don't have to sell this house. So what we did is we bought another house. Of course, there's a lot of craziness in between. We bought a house, and we, at that point, became accidental landlords. So we were actually going to rent out this house in Ocean View, but we got a grant to get it lifted. It was all crazy, so we couldn't move out of the house. So we rented the house we just bought for the first 2 years. And so we bought the house, and you have a month or two between your mortgage payments before you got to make your first payment. And within that time, we'd had renters in there, and they made the first mortgage payment. So we never even made a mortgage payment on the house. And me and Stephanie just looked at each other like, because we've been like fighting to like take down our loan on this 971 Ocean View. And, we're like, that was our hope, was to eventually pay down this loan enough where we had value in our house. And now somebody else was doing that for us. And we had a little money on the top. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's the simplest idea, when you talk to real estate investors. But for me, that was the paradigm shift of, okay, I like real estate. The idea that somebody else is going to buy this property for me. And when I ran the numbers, I was like, man, in the long term, this is going to be significant money, and I wasn't making a lot of money at the time. So it was like, dang, this is a way for me to make some real long-term money, even if I'm not making a lot of money in my daily job. And I kind of fell in love with real estate. Uh, we had another opportunity. I got my license very soon after that, and I bought a straight up investment property, and Steph and I spent like everything we had to buy this investment property, but it was a killer deal, best deal that we've got. But then another opportunity came up, and that's when we did our, this was a house hop. The first one was a house hop, but this next one was the real house hop because we knew what we were doing. And we said, look, our house in Ocean View, this house that's sitting on the water here, was going to get lifted by a FEMA grant. We did all the paperwork. It took like 5 years to come to fruition, but it actually started coming. They said, you're going to be out of your house for 6 months to a year. You need to find a place to live. And instead of thinking, why don't I rent a place? We said, why don't we buy a place? Let's keep this real estate investing thing going. Let's build our portfolio. And we bought a pretty turnkey property because I was completely out of money. But it was a good deal because it was the opportunity for me to pick up a deal at that time. So we were able to pick up our fourth property doing a house hop. And I think the thing that, was crazy for me is here I am, like, got all these friends that have all this money and stuff. And they're like, Alex, man, you've got 4 properties. Like, and it's like this, you must be rich. You've got all these properties. And it's like, no, I mean, not at all. And it's just like, I think that was why I got so into promoting house hopping and house hacking, because it's like, this is something that everybody can do. If you have a job and you can get a loan, you can house hop and you can build a real estate portfolio. And when I buy these houses, I think of, all right, this is one of my kids' college fund. This is a long-term investment. And I think if you think of picking up real estate portfolio as a long-term investment, it can work. Even if it's hard, even if it's crazy, you're going to learn. You're going to learn from your experience, especially. That's why it's so good to just get in the game and get it started, because you're going to learn so much. Our first one, we literally rebuilt that whole house pretty much for way more than it was ever worth. But it was, we learned how to work with contractors. We learned about flood zones. I always tell my clients, man, hey, I am a flood zone expert. I can tell you all kinds of stuff on flood insurance. But the key is, when you get into any of these type of real estate strategies, if you get started, you do it, you're going to learn so much more than if you just read about it. And to me, house hopping and house hacking is kind of the easiest, lowest risk, lowest cash way to do it. I showed you guys that slide earlier about, $30,000 down as opposed to $7,500 down. A lot of people can save up money and come up with $7,500. Most average people don't have $30,000 to put down on a house. That's awesome if you do. But what if you could pick up a handful of properties, by house hopping? So yeah, guys, I'm gonna hand the mic over to Dan to kind of talk a little bit more about house hacking. But I think the keys to take out of my story is just, hang in there, learn from your experiences, and understand that one of the key values to house hopping and house hacking is the simple fact that if you live in a property, you're going to get a killer loan with very little money down. And right now, and it's usually your best interest rates too. VA loans, I've seen some under 3%. If you have a VA, oh my gosh, if you have access to that, and Dan will talk more about that, but the opportunities out there. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because I think so many people can take advantage of this and start picking up properties. And we'll show you some examples of people who have. So Dan, man, Dan Macduff, he is working with me. I'm going to slide out of this real quick. Dan, you want to just kind of share about kind of your story? I think that's a great example of just house hacking and house hopping in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Alex. So a little bit about me. I've been working with Alex in one manner or another for the last couple of years. I'm active duty Navy right now. I'm also a licensed real estate agent on Alex's team. So I've been house hacking since 2016. Joined the Navy, rented for a while, rented for about a year. And I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad years ago. I knew that there was a better way. I just didn't know what that was until I figured out what the VA loan was. And I mean, that's a huge advantage for military personnel. So if you have that, it's an incredible opportunity. So I focused on house hacking and sort of in the traditional sense, sort of like what you hear on the blogs online and everything, where you buy a multifamily property, you live in one of the units and you rent the other units out. So you become a landlord and you have a house. With the VA loan, they let you do that with 1 to 4 unit properties. So that's what I did. I had a friend on the ship who owned a few of those. And so he kind of helped guide me through it a little bit. And the good thing about it is when you're basically working your first real job, have your first steady paycheck, you don't have a big cash reserve. So having your rent offset or your mortgage offset by someone paying you rent is awesome. So you can save money for repairs, things like that, and buying the next property. So that's where my mindset was, to save money in the short term so that I have money in the long term. So what I did, 2016, bought a duplex. Bought it for about 172. It was fully occupied, and so I had to wait for one of the tenants to move out. And I was lucky. The better of what I think the tenants stayed. The other ones, I mean, I came back from an underway at one point, and there was a repossession notice on my door for the last tenant's furniture and everything. I had to call the sheriff, like, don't take my stuff. They're not here anymore. So I lucked out, really. So that tenant stuck with me for a while, and I'll get to that. But so there I am. I'm paying I'm paying my mortgage basically with my tenant's rent. So it didn't quite cover it, but I had a roommate from the ship. He paid me a few $100s to live there, so I was making money to live in this house. And I would say it was probably the minimum standard that the VA would have appraised, that the VA would have let me move into. It needed some repairs, so it was definitely a learning experience. Learned how to put in flooring, learned how to do a little bit of plumbing, all the good stuff. So kind of with that in mind, I had probably my first experience with real estate was really positive. So despite some small hiccups, just some quirky stuff, learning to be a landlord, especially when I'm going out to sea every month or so, it was interesting. So I decided to rinse and repeat, right? This is easy. Why do people find this difficult? Whatever. I knew I qualified for another loan. And yeah. So if you didn't know that you can qualify for, or you can have 2 VA loans at once, you can. It all depends on the price of the property, but I was able to qualify again. So I moved out of that one, found a new duplex, moved into that one. And basically what I did was buy the best property in the worst part of town, kind of the opposite of what I tell you to do. So this place, the sellers were a nightmare. I mean, they came to close with personal checks instead of cashier's checks, like just everything in between. The tenant that I inherited, I ended up evicting her, and she stopped paying rent while I was on deployment. So I'm like 3 months into a 6-month deployment, and next thing I know, I'm getting messages from my property manager that, she didn't pay the rent again. Great. So, I mean, I just kicked that can until it came back. Eventually had to kick her out. Prior to that, I was living there for maybe 2 months, 3 months, and they say about a year. But then I got burglarized, so I came back from. I had to do some evaluations on a ship down in Florida. I come back and my front door's open. Well, that's weird. And I go in and I call my then girlfriend. I'm like, "Have you seen my TV?" She didn't take my TV. That was my first home insurance claim. So I made out in the end.
Damn, Dan was picking people off left and right.
Yeah. So I decided to move that day. It was a Sunday. I found a U-Haul that was open. I just packed all my stuff and went back to the other place, which I fortunately hadn't rented out yet. So ultimately, I did put another tenant in there. And then the repairs kept having to be done. I don't know, the HVAC system went, some of the other smaller stuff went, had leaks. I don't know, it was kind of unexpected because the property seemed like it was in a fairly good condition. It wasn't though, so I learned a lot from that. That same month that I evicted my tenant, I think she left like the day before the sheriff showed up. The other tenant decided to leave. So the whole reason with getting a duplex in my mind was it's never going to be fully vacant, right? Well, I had a fully vacant duplex for 4 months. And they moved out at the beginning of the fall. So that tends to be a more difficult time to rent a property. So I'm going into winter with this vacant property, this albatross on my back. Like I gotta do something about this. So what do? I become an accidental Section 8 landlord. So I went down to the Section 8 office and talked to them and figured out how to get inspected. It's kind of a tedious process. It's not overwhelming. It's free money, but it's not easy money. There's a lot of paperwork. But being in a large military organization, I'm pretty good with paperwork. So it wasn't that bad. I placed a tenant. It was right around that time that I started actually going to the Hopportunity meetings, met Alex, and he helped me sell that thing. So sold it for a little bit more than I bought it for, and more importantly, I wasn't bleeding $1,200 a month. So meantime, I decided, okay, where am I going to go from here? Right? I can't just give up and just pack it in and say, oh, real estate's not for me because I failed a couple times, right? So thought, what can I do with the house I'm living in? So I knew I needed to get my VA loan back, my VA eligibility back. So I made some repairs. I put up new siding, replaced a bunch of the stuff in that property. I totally revamped my tenant side. She was happy. She was ready to leave. And I asked her what it would take to get her to stay. And she said new floors. So she got new floors. So that was in August. I refinanced. I was able to force enough equity in the property to get a conventional loan, which was great. So my interest rate went down, my payments went down, and I got my eligibility back. So I'm thinking, all right, so now what's the next move? And then September of 2019 rolled around, and I don't know if any of you remember Hurricane Dorian, but you probably don't because it was pretty unremarkable, except for me. I think I was the only damage in Hampton Roads. I had this massive tree that was my neighbor's just come down, crush my house. It fell on my tenant's side. Fortunately, she was okay. She ended up breaking her arm, had a few other injuries. I mean, we had to call the fire department. They condemned the house. So that was another exercise in learning about insurance, learning how to deal with basic crisis management. I'd like to say I was as cool as Alex was, just sitting on my couch with my feet up, out of the water, but it was a little more hectic than that. The place quickly became uninhabitable, pretty much instantly. And so it was kind of at that point that I was learning about, doing rehabs and working with contractors. Alex introduced me to the contractor that I'm still using today. It was also during that time that I had already started looking for. What's that?
What's his name?
Oh, Mark Kelly Development. Yeah, little plug for him. So, yeah, and he helped me out big time. I mean, he rebuilt the house. It was massive, massive rehab, and I couldn't have done it without a contractor who was willing to work with me. Yeah, massive rehab. So, meantime, I'm displaced. So if you don't know how homeowners insurance works, they give you like a displacement allowance. So I went and I lived downtown Norfolk. I had a view of the Wisconsin from my penthouse apartment. It was great for a while. That November, I closed on my first house hop. So this was something that was already in the works before the tree fell, but it just kind of worked out where I never had to actually go back to living in the duplex. So I'd always wanted to buy a house up in Ocean View. I liked it up there. I figured it's got some good rental potential. Good. It's definitely an up-and-coming area. So I'm thinking, all right, single-family house. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. So I find a VA foreclosure. I buy it with a VA rehab loan, which was a product for a while, and my understanding now it's much harder to get. A lot of the lenders aren't willing to do VA rehab loans anymore. But I was able to do it. There were some interesting intricacies dealing with the VA from both the buyer and the seller side. So there's some things that a VA foreclosure, VA won't do because they're sold as is. But the VA won't let you buy a property unless you have certain things done, mainly a termite inspection. So nobody pays for it. So that was fun to deal with. All this bureaucracy, but being the good naval officer that I am, I'm pretty good with bureaucracy. Did a $20,000 rehab to it. It's where I live now, and couldn't be happier with it because I found a way to. Well, I realize now, being a real estate agent, I'm able to put another bathroom in there, and I now know how to run the comps. So I'm planning on putting in the bathroom, refinancing it, getting that VA benefit back, reusing it, and moving on. Since becoming an agent, I did sell my duplex. Made a pretty good profit on it. I was able to put a tenant in there for quite a bit more than I was renting it before. Sold it, and so now I'm looking for the next step.
Yeah, that duplex was too good to pass up on selling it.
Oh, absolutely. Prices are crazy now.
So yeah, man, that's awesome. Any key takeaways to kind of your overall kind of experience on your own personal deals?
Well, real estate's hard. I mean, they talk about it on the internet. They write books like, this is great. I'm making so much money. You work for it. I assure you. Weird stuff happens.
It's so easy though, man.
Oh, yeah.
So easy.
Yeah, sure. Maybe when I'm 10, 20 years in the game, it'll be easy for me too. But starting out, I think getting over those first few hurdles and realizing it's okay to fail. I mean, you come up when you're growing up, failing is such a bad thing. Like you get a C on paper and it's like the end of the world. Well, I mean, I've learned more.
That was a good day for me. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. It is challenging, and you gotta be able to look. Okay, what lessons am I learning from this? Like that second duplex that I bought, it was 2 years of my life that were just like lesson after lesson after lesson, and I couldn't be the agent that I am now, or the investor that I am now, had I not done that. And I mean, it's all about jumping in to the deep end and kind of sinking or swimming, I guess.
Man, when Alex said you were a glutton for punishment, man, he wasn't joking. Like, you have literally been kicked in the ass, in the front, punched in the face.
I don't know what it says about me that I keep coming back for more.
Man, that's like, dude. I mean, again, it's a good learning lesson. Like, but damn, talk about welcome to the game. You know what I mean? That's crazy. So, guys, real quick, I want to go over some of these questions. It's not a lot, but just a few. Alex, can you explain more on the multiple VA loans at once?
Yeah, so a lot of it's based on, it's called your eligibility. How much of your eligibility have you used up? And those rules actually just changed in January. So they're kind of still a little gray, but you can definitely use multiple loans. And if you're moving from one area to the other, it's very easy to get another loan. If you live in a property for a certain amount of time, you have a reason to move to another property, you can get another loan. Now, your maximum amount kind of slowly dwindles down. So you might want to do like Dan did and refinance out of one of your properties, and then so you can use it again to buy another one. So that's kind of one of the best ways you build. And that's one of the things that we talk about with house hopping and house hacking is we'll go into some of like the tools and the assets that you can use. One of them is, that VA loan is incredible, but you only have but so much of it. So what you do is you go into the property, use your VA loan, you're able to buy the property, no money down. Then you put some money into that property, fix it up, build the equity in it. And then you go and put another type of loan on it with a refinance. So you don't have any money coming out of your pocket. Maybe you put in a conventional loan. And then now your VA is freed up again. And now with the VA loan, there's no actual top. So say you wanted to buy like a fourplex in a city, which was like impossible before. They're able to do VA loans like up to $1 million, which is no other loan can do that. So not saying to go buy $1 million property, but you can. It's insane. And with your VA loan rates are the best. So I've got a deal right now at 2.75.
Wow.
Now that's pretty specific kind of deal, but still, that's insane. That's like a CD. Where do you see 2.75? Anything close to 3, anything under 4. I mean, dang. But yeah, so the VA loan you can definitely do multiple times. We can get to some specifics. If you have any like very specific questions, feel free to hit me up after this, and we can kind of dive into it a little bit more.
Awesome. Another one is somebody you had said earlier in the question was when he says it was a good deal, what kind of deal was it, and what kind of first investments did you make? This is somebody wrote this question when you were speaking to when you were first starting. Yeah, Alex.
Okay.
You.
All right. So my first ever deal was a accidental landlord deal. I would just bought another house and then I became a landlord, right? So that was not super strategic, but it worked out very well. The next deal was when I was an agent and I got into investing. And that was when I bought a place, 508 Gilpin, whose water heater just died today, actually. That's the life we live, brah. But so that deal was killer. I was a new agent and I was really into the investing side. And so I'm showing all these investor properties. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, man, you guys should have bought all those properties I sent you. Like these deals were like ridiculous. So one of these ones one of my investor passed up on it. And it came back on the market. And I told Steph, I was like, this is an incredible deal. We don't really have enough money to do this, but we prayed on it and we're like, let's go for it. I mean, we literally had like under $100 in the bank when we bought the house.
Nice.
We pretty much took everything and put it in there, which I don't recommend. But I knew the deal. I knew, like, I have rental properties down the street that I managed. I knew how good of a deal it was. So we bought it at $90,000, and when it appraised for $120 before I even moved into the place.
Nice.
So already had $30,000 of equity, and we rented out for $1,200 a month. My mortgage is like $550, I think. I don't know, somewhere around $500 a month. So that one is by far my best cash producing. Most of my other ones are $200, $150, $300, like in that range. And I'm okay with that, with my model that I'm going with. But that $500, $600 one that helps, take care of those other properties.
Yep.
It keeps building up that account as opposed to just kind of staying down here. So that was a basically straight investment rental property.
Nice. Dan, question for you. What would you recommend? Because you've been in for a little bit, you've had, issues, you've had problems. What can you recommend to the guys that are watching, or even the people that are coming back and watching this replay? What would you recommend to do as a curving the learning lesson / you've been kicked and punched a lot and not by things you can control, but what can you recommend to these guys that don't do this because of that? What can you recommend for these guys and ladies to do?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is don't try to go it alone. I mean, you can't really do a real estate transaction alone. You've got a lender, you got your real estate agent, but I think it's important to network with other investors and talk about what other people are doing, get ideas, and talk about what you're doing. I mean, I didn't want to talk about what I was doing. That first opportunity that I showed up to, I didn't want to talk about that second duplex because it was just bad. I didn't even want to get out of the car and go in, but I did. So, talking about what you do, networking, and seeing what other people are doing. Because, I mean, going to these groups, you'll find people love talking about what they're doing. They love giving you advice about what you're doing, whether you want it or not. But so, learning from others' experience. The other is be able to run your numbers, because that's one of the things I didn't learn until I failed that second time. Well, I guess the first time, that other duplex. It's not that hard to be able to have an accurate idea of what a property is going to make. But if you don't do it at all, if you say, well, my mortgage is $1,200 and this thing rents for $1,250, I'll be good. You're not going to be good. There's a lot more that goes into it. Trust me. Yeah. I was basically breaking even on that duplex.
$50 is not the game.
Yeah. Nope. You need to be making more than that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I would say those are two big things.
recommending like knowing your numbers and taking the time to go out and meet groups like Hopportunity, other RIA groups, or anything that's like a local, to meet some local guys, talk about what they're doing, what they're learning, what their experiences were, good or bad. Like, I really think that goes back, because it sounds like what you're saying, right, is your network is your net worth, because it really is the net worth of other people's experience that's going to help you curve what maybe you think you might be doing versus, nah, man, don't try that. Granted, you can't control like a tree coming down, flood stuff. I get that, but it sounds like if you were able to be in a group like this and earlier, maybe some of those things that weren't God driven.
Yeah. We could have avoided some mistakes.
Like, it sounds like that would have been it. So that's good. Good answer.
Hey, one other thing that you kind of forgot to mention as a recap is don't buy in a really crappy neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. So you may not have to live there. So say you're just buying a straight up rental property, but someone's going to, and you got to think, who's going to want to live here? So, I mean, I recommend walking around the neighborhood. If you don't feel safe, your tenants probably aren't going to feel safe either. And that's a call that you have to make.
Guys,
could be a great deal. There are plenty of cheap houses out there. Cheap for a reason.
Another question that came up here was, how did you build your base of contractors for getting work done?
So I've really worked with just a couple of contractors, primarily that one, and that was from my network. Alex introduced me to him. I'd met him before, I think, at one of these meetings in town.
Opportunity.
It's that networking. What's that?
Opportunity meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about networking, and good contractors are hard to come by. So when you find a good one, hold on to them.
Yeah, for sure. I'll vouch for that. In my world, the same way. You guys, when you find a contractor, and that's anybody watching this, vet those guys, make sure they're licensed, insured, and then they do good work. And then when they do the work, they get it done on time, it's done the right way, you pay them. Don't drag them out. Don't try to beat them up. Like, I got to make a living too, Yeah. That's a really big piece. So yeah, very, very good feedback there.
I like that. Don't try to beat them up too, man. Like, people will just try to like nickel and dime the crap out of it. Like, if you get a good contractor, they need to make money too. Otherwise, they're not going to work with you. Everyone's trying to live in this business.
I can speak to that. You know what I mean? When I first got in this industry, I was a contractor. I had a contracting company. I know what it feels like, and like me as that person before I got on the investor side, I'd be like the contractor. You got to come back and be like, well, hey, I got a guy that can do $100 less. You should go to that guy because I'm definitely not him. Like, if you're going to beat me up over $100, I'm just not. I don't want to work with you anyway, right? Versus like the $100, pay a little bit more than $100 because he did good work, did it on time, everything worked out great. Again, did what he said he was going to do, type thing. Man, like, that is a huge value right there. Like, huge. Why do we want to beat him up? I mean, I know guys right now. I think you guys can agree to this. You can go in and call that guy, and like 2 days later, they're at the house, the job's done, you got an invoice, it's done and over with. I don't have to learn to go know them again. I don't have to know if they're going to do the right thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to learn that. So sometimes it is worth paying a little bit more, because if not, you pay the cheap price. You got to go back and pay some money more to fix that one.
Yep.
Get what you pay for.
Yeah, totally. Alex, did you have any more of your? I think you had some slides you were going through. I don't want to stop you in that.
Yeah. I think let me do a screen share real quick, and we'll go through some of the examples of some clients that have done house hopping and house hacking recently.
Cool.
Just I think the real life examples make sense, and that's the whole thing about this, guys. This is not the most crazy strategy out there that you're going to hear about on TV because it's cool, and it's pretty basic, but it helps people build up their portfolio. So let's kind of roll through this real quick. I'm just going to hit this up one more time if I can figure out how to do it. All right, house hacker. Purchase a house that you'll live in while minimizing your costs or living expenses by renting out a room or an adjoining unit, as well as manipulating a property to gain value or increase cash flow. And then house hopping. Purchase a house that you will live in with the end goal of holding it and turning it into a rental investment property, and then repeating that process. that's house hacking and house hopping. So let's kind of start with Ben's duplex. Dan, you want to kind of roll with this one real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ben was a client a while back. He's actually one of the property managers now at Coastal Group.
Yeah.
So he used an FHA loan, so a 203K rehab loan. They let you put 3.5% down on a property. So if you aren't fortunate enough and you haven't earned the right to use that VA loan, I'd say this is the next best thing. So he bought this house for $4,500, basically income producing property. So he bought it $98,000, put about a $30,000 rehab in it, for a total loan of $125,000. So while he was living in it, he was paying $280 a month. Now, you look at that and you say, well, what was the point of that? He's not living for free. Yeah. So on the big guys' pages and the blogs and the podcasts, these guys are making money while they're living in their duplexes. It's not always the case. It depends on your market. But the real value of this one comes from when he moved out. Rehab's done, moved out, held on to it, made money, and now I think actually today he got on. Alex, did he get under contract or sell it? Actually closed.
He closed today.
Yeah, closed today for $200,000.
And
so this is definitely a big win, and it's one of those things. Yeah, you're not going to make money that first year, but think about it. I mean, to rent a decent place, at least in this area, you're going to pay at least $1,000 a month. And here he's living for only $280. I mean, that's less than a lot of people's car payment. So that's the kind of mindset you have to get in. You might not find the perfect deal, but you'll find it. If you can find a good enough deal, you'll come out in the end. And this is one of those. The FHA loan lets you do structural changes, so they'll let you change the layout. The VA rehab loan would not let you do that. So in this case, the previous owners had put a bedroom into the kitchen and just kind of built out a third bedroom. So he used that rehab loan, tore that out, and opened it up quite a bit. So there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do. Having been in this recently, actually, it's still a good looking property. I mean, you definitely made it a whole lot better than it was, and that's where the value comes from.
Yeah. Both Dan and Ben were not planning on selling their duplexes.
No.
You follow the market. They were planning on holding both of these properties. And Dan, you were planning on holding yours too, right? I want to speak
absolutely.
But we ran the numbers on them again, and man, we were talking, had a beer one day, and we're like, this is insane. People are paying so much money for duplexes. So we looked at the value of selling it. And that's the key, guys. If you can own a property, you can pick up the value from that. Don't buy stupid, but if you have something, then you can work with that equity in some way, shape, or form. So just being able to pick up properties has a significant value to it. It only gets harder to pick up more properties. At least that's my experience. All right. So the next one is, actually, Dan, we already did this one. So this is actually Dan's house. I was trying to pull it up, but Ashley was not letting me put it on the screen. She was bossing me around. So this is
kick him out now, Ashley. Kick him out.
Don't kick me out. Dan, you want to go over June's real quick?
Yep. All right. So June is a fairly recent client. He is a new officer in the Navy. So he was very much like I was, just kind of starting out. And I think it's a position a lot of people find themselves in. And the tendency is to just go out and rent the nicest apartment you can find on the beach. You go out to Chick's Beach and get your toes in the sand. He did something different. And I think that's where a lot of people wouldn't look at this and immediately think opportunity. Yeah. So purchase price $175, about $32,000 rehab. And so total loan $215,000. His monthly payments $1,260. He's making $1,200 on one of the units, and then he's got a roommate, kind of like I did. And if you find a good roommate, you don't mind living like that, at least for a while. So he's getting paid $600 a month to live in this place while his tenants pay down his mortgage, while the property hopefully appraises or increases in value. So a couple pictures of the inside. You'll find a lot of these properties as you're looking at them. They've got this like weird wood paneling. They've got a lot of dated cabinets, things like that. And the thing that a lot of people can't do is see past that. So you kind of go in, you say, well, if we move around these things, get some new appliances, it's going to totally change the game here. Even just painting cabinets changes the feel of an apartment.
Hey guys, real quick, we had some questions pop up here if you guys are good.
Yep.
Yeah.
The first question I have was, how long do you have to live in the property before you can move to your next house hacking investment?
That's a tricky one.
That is a tricky one. So,
yeah, you can hit it up.
So I can definitely talk about the VA loan. The VA states you have to intend to move into the property within 6 months. So, or 60 days. 60 days. So you just have to intend to do that. Now, in my case, I did, and then I'm not going to live somewhere I don't feel safe, and that was fine. The issue is if you decide to buy a place and you don't move into it, that's mortgage fraud, and then you go to jail if and when you get caught.
Straight and triple. Keep it
straight to jail. And then, Alex, you want to talk about FHA or maybe conventional?
Yeah, I mean it's really about the same. I usually say about a year. You kind of have to, if you're going to do this, intend to stay for close to a year, and if things change, it's not a big deal. If your life circumstances change, then you're fine. But if you go in there with the intention of never living there, then that is mortgage fraud. But if you go there, you live there, and then things come up and you got to move, they pretty much will allow you to move. They don't really check on it. Not saying that you should ever do mortgage fraud, but if something comes up and you have to get out of there, you got to move, whatever the case might be. I've never seen it actually be a problem. But I think the idea is that you're supposed to be there for a year. And I think there's some products that say you're supposed to be there longer, but they're pretty specific products, and they'll let you know that for sure before you do a deal with that. I can't remember I can't remember which ones there are, but usually conventional and FHA are about a year.
Okay. Another one that came up, another question was, I have always been told that even if I refi out on my VA loan, I can't get another property because they see that I'm in my second property in the same location. Is this true?
No, that's not true.
Okay. False statement. I couldn't see who the Facebook.
That's not true. You can definitely get another VA loan. If you have a certain amount spent, then it makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
But there's no reason you can't use another VA loan. Sometimes maybe you need to live closer to base. Maybe you need to be in a better school zone. Maybe you need to. If you have a reason to move, then they'll usually be able to do another loan. There might be something else there that we could kind of figure out if you want to hit us up with your specific scenario. But in general, you should be able to get another VA loan.
Awesome.
It also tends to be up to the lender's discretion. So I had to shop around lenders, a couple different lenders, before I could find one that would let me do that without writing an essay as to why I think I need another VA loan.
And who wants to write an essay?
Not this guy.
Last question, guys, and then we'll get back on track. You got John here, says, how much more have you guys charged for rent after renovating and remodeling a house?
So I guess I'll start just because I got one example. So I was charging $950, and then I did the renovation. I rented it out for $1,100.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like a big increase, but it is. It makes a difference month to month.
Huge difference. Huge.
Yeah. And, I do a lot of property management, so we do so many renovations. It's hard to say specifically. A lot of times, honestly, the rent value only goes up a little bit. Like you add like a second bathroom and you get like another $200 a month, which is beneficial, but that bathroom might have cost you $10,000 or $8 to $10,000 or something like that. But now your value on the house just went up probably like $25,000. So you've got to weigh a couple factors in there. Also, what you're weighing in there is who is your tenant going to be? You know, if you've got that old beat up tub, and as I always talk about, the tub, because I just remember going into so many properties and some beat up, you know, properties I was managing and like not being able to look them in the eye because I know how bad the place is. When somebody looks at a dirty tub, it's hard for them to get past that. So a little renovation like glazing a tub could maybe it doesn't increase the rent, but it increases the level of tenant that you can have in there. Because if somebody's willing to deal with all this stuff, a lot of times it's because they can't find another place. So you want the person who chooses your place. They're going to be a better tenant for the long run. And if you can find a good tenant for the long run, it's going to save you money, which eventually makes you more money.
Awesome. All right, well, let's keep on rolling. We got a few minutes left. I think we try to cap this thing in an hour.
All right, I'm going to hit up Carl's house hop. So my man Carl Adam just closed about 2 weeks ago, I guess. He bought a place over in Virginia Beach, nice little townhouse. And really the specifics on the deal aren't even that crucial on this one because I just think it's so cool. Carl was 22 years old, enlisted in the Navy, E5, and was able to buy a house for himself, his mom, and his high school sister. So his big thing was he wanted to give back to his family. I was like, how cool is that to be able to do that? You know, and to be 22 and even think about that. I just gave him mad credit on that. But as soon as he got in there, you know, we were talking about the investing thing. And, you know, like most, honestly, this is what always happens. I tell everybody about real estate investing and house hopping and house hacking. And they look at me like, okay, whatever. And then they go off on deployment and they read like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or one of their buddies, you know, tells them about something. And they come back and they're like, hey, dude, I heard about this crazy real estate investing thing. And I really want to get, I'm like, dude, I was just telling you that like 6 months ago. So he came back just pumped up like, dude, I want to buy another property. I'm like, all right, let's do this. So he comes in. He was on deployment for a while, came back and had the opportunity to buy another property. And so at 24, he bought his second property. And he didn't do the duplex thing. He wasn't interested in that. He wanted to have a house, but he bought really well. He bought a house that was undervalued. And so we got it under contract, and he's going to live in it with some military guys. And, you know, it's going to be basically he'll house hack that as well. But the idea for him was he wanted to pick up more properties. So every time he had a chance to pick up a property, he was going to do it. And he did it the right way. You know, he didn't just move before he was eligible for it. He's eligible for it. And so he bought well. And in the process, he basically, once we got the appraisal, it appraised $25,000 over the purchase price, which is pretty tough to do because usually the appraiser bases some of that on the purchase price. So he did a really good job buying, and we were able to negotiate new roof and gutters and a French drain system to kind of make it work out. So not always the case to be able to do that, but kudos for him, man. He's 24. He's got 2 properties. By the time he's 30, he'll probably have, 6 to 10 properties. And that's kind of the really cool thing about this strategy. And then we've got Nick and Kara. So Nick and Kara, they were part of Hopportunity before they left for New York. And this deal was really cool. So I'll kind of explain this one to you because I think it's pretty funny. So Nick and Kara wanted to do the BRRRR strategy. And we were looking all over the place for stuff. But Nick's like, man, I'm up for whatever. I'll get in there. I'll get my hands dirty. And we want to try stuff. And so this deal popped up in Virginia Beach. It was super random. I went by there. I think I went by for another client and they weren't interested in it. They just wanted a single family home. But the problem was this house, if you can see in the picture, there's a house in the front and it's on the water, which is crazy. And then there's a house behind it. So there was this beat up house behind it. So most people couldn't get past that house. There's like this in-law suite was kind of the concept that was behind there. And it was really beat up. Literally, we didn't know there was a kitchen inside there because we couldn't see it. I was climbing on couches to get in there. until they cleared it out, we had no idea that there was a kitchen inside there. So we were like, we're going to build a kitchen, I guess. The sewage was leaking into the crawl space of that little house. But in that front house, it was turnkey, ready to go. It wasn't like the prettiest thing ever. They were able to do some things to it. But so what I did is I was like, hey, Nick, man, you told me you're up for whatever. If you want this house, you're going to need to live in it. And Kara at the time was literally like 8 months pregnant. So I'm like, this is a long shot, but you guys seem like you're up for whatever. We looked at the property and they're like, dude, we need to put an offer on this. And so they kind of went with the flow of it. And the idea was you live in the one unit, you rent out the other unit, right? House hacking. And they were going to fix up the back unit using credit cards and whatever cash they had left. And they were able to turn it into a sick Airbnb property. So total mortgage $1,350 average. And I think I have the numbers in here. Oh, put the numbers in. Shucks. I would say this: they're making a lot of money on this property. They redid that back unit and they Airbnb'd it out. They made their mortgage for the year within a couple months, and now they moved to New York, and they have rented out that front unit for, I think, over their whole mortgage payment. So everything they make in the Airbnb is cash on the top.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're crushing it. They're crushing it. And it's a property on the water. I think the thing that I always try to point out to people is you got to look past the stuff that other people can't look past. This was a house on the water with 2 houses on it. You know, for me, that's like, isn't this obvious? But probably 50 people had gone past this house because it wasn't HGTV. You know, it ruined their view. I get it. Well, let's make the view in the back house awesome. I don't think do I have a picture of the back house? Yeah, so this is the house originally. They totally pimped this house out, put a back deck on it. I mean, it looks awesome, overlooking the water. And so they get really good money on it. And the key was they were able to look past what everybody else couldn't. And now they recently moved to New York. They just purchased the 8-plex there, and they leverage money from these deals, and they're crushing it. And I say, like, this is the average Joe kind of way to get into real estate. Nick was a Norfolk cop, and so you don't have to be the richest guy in the world to get into real estate investing. Now he's got an 8-plex. Him and Kara are just doing awesome up there, and they're going to continue to buy properties. So to me, house hopping, house hacking is that kind of, it's like the gateway drug of real estate to me. Once you kind of get in it, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is doable. I can do this. Hopefully you have that paradigm shift, and now you start seeing that, man, we should get another property. This is pretty easy and profitable. Paradigm shift. Look at that, man. Talk about a lead in. Age, education, income. This is real estate, man. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I think Sean will tell you, there's so many different ways to do this game. And then with the house hopping, house hacking, it really opens it up. So in our examples today, we had a 22-year-old enlisted seaman, right? He's got 2 properties now. We had a Norfolk cop who owns 11 properties now. Ben, when he bought his duplex, I hope you don't get mad at me for saying this, but he was making like $11 an hour to kind of get his foot in the door. And then now he just sold a property and made like $50K on it.
What?
So that takes a long time to make $50K.
That's awesome.
But it's just, that's what you can do. And with real estate, that's why we're excited about this game. Not everybody's going to make $50K on their first deal. Don't get me wrong. But the idea is if you can get in the game, you can do things. And if you can do that for as little as, $5,000 down, I mean, I think Ben put like $5,000 into that deal. Now he put more money in later, so I'll say that. Call it $10,000, but if you can do 10,
anybody can buy $5,000.
Yeah, you put in 10 grand and you make 50 grand. That's a good day.
Not a bad return, right?
Yeah,
Bad
but
return.
it's a long game, man.
Yeah.
Real estate is not quick and easy. It's long and it's hard, but it can be profitable. So yeah, man, those are some examples. I hope those help people out to kind of see that it is real. And there's a million different ways to do this. Airbnb, rent to your roommates, rent out your garage. We can dive into some of that stuff. I think Dan and I are going to do a seminar next month. Actually, now it's this month. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of like the strategies and the tools and how to do it. It's just too much to cover for one of these meetings, honestly. But yeah, man, I hope you guys, were able to get something from this. And, I know we're kind of running past the hour here. So
no, we're doing good, man. I was saying like maybe we could do a 10-minute Q&A, and whoever's on here that's live with us, let's try to interact with them as much as possible. And to me, I think the easiest thing to do is just like write your questions over there. So anybody that's still here, it looks like we've got like 16, 17 viewers still on. Drop your comments over there and ask these questions, and we'll try to get Alex and Dan to help you guys get things answered for you. And if I can help, I'll jump in as well. One of the questions we have here was from Jerome Scott. He said, where can I go to see about how much my duplex is worth?
Dude, what up?
That's us.
Yeah, no, that is what we're really good at. Dan and I look at a lot of duplexes, way more than we would like to. And right now, if you're looking to sell a duplex, you should be looking to sell a duplex because people are looking to buy duplexes. So supply and demand says now is going to be one of your best times to sell in probably, I don't know, the next 5 to 10 years. So
Nice.
talk to me or Dan. We'll have our information somewhere, right? Is our information anywhere?
Oh, we'll get it out.
Yeah.
We'll get it out there, guys. So if you're ever interested in trying to get a hold of Alex or Dan or myself or Cameron, just go to the Hopportunity page. If you go find us on Facebook, go over there and like that page, and then just write on there, right? We're very active on it. We're responsive pretty quick there on it, and we'll get a hold of you guys, right? Super, super easy way to get a hold of us.
And that's not a pitch, guys. That's just the reality. We know what duplexes cost and are worth. And if you're looking to sell something now, honestly, I mean, Dan and Ben were both not planning on selling. We ran the numbers, and we're like, damn, people will pay this. We'll sell it for that.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about.
I think that's the difference here, guys, is like guys that are viewing and watching this for later, like you are listening to people that are in the industry as an investor, right? And have the ability of being a realtor. So like why would they not give you the best idea and the best number, right? Like they know better. It's not like I feel like, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, there's some realtors out there that are just like, yeah, this number sounds great, but they got no validity behind it. They got no numbers behind it. They got no reason behind it. It's just like throwing some mud against the wall and hopefully it sticks and somebody likes it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, without kind of talking bad about anybody, there's definitely a difference between investor agents and non-investor agents. And it's not that you've got to be some genius, but if you're not doing it, then it is very different. If you're selling high-end luxury homes, you want to really dive into that. And a lot of agents are part-time or haven't I don't know. There's basically, you want to try to, if you're going to be doing something specific, you can find somebody who has that skill or that experience and go with that. That to me, that makes the most sense, is to say, okay, this guy, has done a lot of duplexes. He is going to know what a duplex is going to sell for. Like Dan and I have been doing a ton of duplex work. So, and not saying to use us, use somebody that has those, those same skills and experience, because it does make a difference. And honestly, it's very, very hard to find the value on a duplex. Don't assume a Zillow number. I get it. Zillow numbers can work sometime on residential if, all the algorithms are perfectly lined up. Nothing. I'm not an anti-Zillow guy, but don't sell your house based on that number.
Yeah.
But on a duplex, it's going to be completely screwed up. There's no saying whatsoever. Honestly, a lot of the duplex, I've sold duplexes lately based on what people will pay for them.
Yep.
And that isn't even necessarily the appraised way to do it, but if you're going to make money on it based on what somebody's going to pay you for it, then that's called markup. That's called good business.
I sold mine for 10 grand over asking.
That's awesome.
Just because someone was willing to pay for it.
Right. It's the only things that worth what people are willing to pay, right? So like what your cash on cash return might be a good idea of is not the same cash on cash for somebody else. Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own agenda and basis for what they do things on. That's why I say, like, put the price out there. If it makes sense, somebody will buy. If it doesn't, okay.
Yeah. And especially with the duplex, it's probably a cash flowing property.
Yep.
But the reality is, if you have somebody who doesn't understand that, you might have just missed out on 20 grand. We probably could have, with some of these, I mean, literally 20 grand would have probably been what if you just ran a basic comp sheet.
Yep.
And I would also say, that's the value of anybody watching this right now who's looking to get into maybe the multifamily space or the investor space, right? And looking for an agent to help them with that. That vet your agent. Like Alex and Dan are ready to say, you vet and say, hey, do you understand investing? Like, do you have multifamily properties? Can I check out some properties that you guys have done? Yeah. And you guys, once you back that up, then you understand to talk those numbers, right? So what cash flow makes sense for you and how to look for those properties versus a random agent that's just like, yeah, well, I'm looking for a multifamily property, and they bring you some crap that just really doesn't make sense, So I would encourage anybody out there that's watching to vet the agent and just say, hey, well, show me what you got. You know what I'm saying? And any agent that is investor friendly and familiar with the multifamily, they're going to be like, yeah, no problem. Let's talk it. You know what I mean? And talk. Yeah.
Guys, another question that came up here was, what advice do you have for overcoming hesitation? If you have 10K, what moves are available?
Come on, man.
Yeah. you just gotta jump into it. I mean, the amount of stuff you're going to learn on your first deal, even if it's a mediocre deal, you're still going to come out on top. Based on just paying down that mortgage, building up that equity, and the experience you gain. And as through the examples we showed you, 10K is more than enough to put down on a property with an FHA loan.
Yeah, you could put down 10K and do 100K rehab. I mean, there's some crazy numbers out there that you can do. It's just very doable. That's why I'm so passionate about it. It's not because I'm trying to sell something. And people always say, oh, you're a real estate agent, you're a salesman. I'm not a salesman at all. Honestly, I don't really sell anybody anything. If they want to buy a house, great. If they don't, that's fine with me too. It'll all work its way out. My goal is to inform people. What I do, they always say, oh, a salesman could sell ice to an Eskimo. I think that's stupid. Eskimo doesn't need ice. But if I find something that does work, like house hopping and house hacking for a large community, then I'm passionate about sharing it. And the reality is, I started a seminar with Michael Foster originally, and Dan and I are picking it back up about house hacking with your VA loan. It wasn't because we were just trying to pick up business. That's always definitely beneficial and something that, helps my business out. But the reality is there's so many people out there that can benefit from this. If you have a VA loan, you could literally do a deal and put no money down, get your experience. You could get people go spend $100,000 on college and come out in debt. You could go and come out with an asset with putting no money down. Like, it sounds like a sales pitch, but it's true. Just freaking learn from it. Get an asset instead of an expense. And, that's the best education you can get. You can pick up something while you're getting that education. But yeah, $10,000, you can crush it. What I would do is I'd probably say you want to do an FHA loan, buy a house for about $160,000 because it's getting a little more expensive out there. Maybe you do that. You put about do a rehab loan, put 10 to 15 into it. Now you got a $175,000 house. You rent it out for about $1,500. Maybe you make $250 a month on it, but that $250 makes that property self-sufficient. That's always the key word I use with my clients is get a property that's self-sufficient and it takes care of itself. You don't got to get rich on the cash flow. Some people, that's their business plan, right? And that's cool. But my idea for most of my clients who aren't full-time real estate, this is a side hustle. Make sure your property is self-sufficient. And, with $10,000, you can put your down payment in, pay for closing costs, or have somebody else have the seller pay for closing costs. And then you've got a couple of grand to do some of those little jobs that maybe increase the value of your property, increase it as functioning as a rental property. So, yeah, man, I think house hacking or house hopping is the best way to use a number like 10K and make the most of it. Maybe not the best way, but an incredible way to do it.
Awesome. So, guys, let's kind of wrap it up here. We'll try to finish this thing out and be done by like 9:30. So we got one more question here, and then what I want to kind of do is just go around here for a second and wrap up with what you guys feel like some closing talks, and then let's talk about what everybody's drinking. Right? That's always a good one. We are a beer group. So, DJ Kirkland was asking, you guys might have mentioned it earlier, but what is the typical credit score required for the VA loan? Alex, Dan, go for it.
It used to be right at 600. Since all this coronavirus stuff happened, it did boost up a little bit. I don't know if it's come back down or not, but it's pretty revolving right now with everything going on. But I'd say 620 is like a good like entry level. If you can get above 620, you should try to get at least above 620. And then as if you guys don't know, the higher your credit score, the better you're going to be able to get on your interest rate. So it's always beneficial to kind of work that up as the best you can. And if you're not there yet, guys, don't think that you can't buy a home. Half of me telling my story is to say that anybody can buy a home. Not everybody should buy a home, but anybody can. And that's the thing. Talk to people. If you start talking to lenders and agents now, even if you can't buy a house, they're going to help you get in that position faster. A lender is going to say, look, don't pay off this debt, pay off this debt. And that's going to help your credit score go up, which is going to help you afford more house, which is going to help you get a better interest rate and all those things. So talk about it, but yeah, get your credit score up. But yeah, 620 I think is kind of where we're at. And I might be off on that because literally it's changing like all the time. And I can look that up. We'll get one of our agents on here to respond to that. If there are any lenders on here right now and you guys know the minimum kind of VA score, then shoot that over. But a lot of that's overlays, which is basically saying that the VA regulation is A, but then these companies who are eventually going to sell the loan, they're going to put their own regulations on it so that loan is more profitable in the secondary market. So a lot of the credit scores can go up and down based on the market itself. And right now it's probably a little bit higher because it's just very volatile right now. Awesome. So higher credit score.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. So as we normally do, let's go around here with our group, talk about who's got what, who's drinking. I'm on Stone IPA and New Realm Hazel Like a Fox IPA. Woo! What you got, Alex?
I've actually got New Realm too, man. Hoptropolis.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. Dan, what do you got?
So I found out that Bold Mariner closes on Mondays and Tuesdays, so that was a bummer. I was gonna have Bold Mariner, so I settled for a Sam Adams Porch Rocker, a seasonal favorite of New Englanders like myself.
Nice, very nice. Mr. Cam, what do you got over there?
I got Jameson.
Yeah.
Hero.
Don't hide it.
Nice. Ladies, come on in here. What you got? See what the ladies got there drinking. We got Ashley and Vanessa.
I got a Kona Spiked Island Seltzer, passion fruit orange guava, which is a lot of flavors all at once, but it's interesting. So
Crazy. Vanessa, what you got?
But I did have a local brewery, Lazy Beach Brewery. I had one of their pineapple bottoms.
Awesome. Good
Nice.
stuff. Guys in the group, if you're hanging out with us, whether it's, what page you're on, share with us. Let you know what you're drinking. We got one person that said, my husband's drinking Crown Royal. I'm drinking Chardonnay. All right. Stuff, man. Digging it. Well, guys, as usual, I appreciate everybody hanging out and joining us. I'm really looking forward to keeping this going as we have, and obviously getting back into the, person into person, because, man, do I really miss it. I miss seeing you guys and meeting you and, just with our normal people connecting with them that we get to see all the time. So I'm really looking forward to getting that going here shortly. But thank you so much for if you're here live with us today, or if you're, watching the replay. Always reach out to us. Join us over at our Hopportunity page. It's on Facebook. If you're looking to check out Alex, check him out at alexwinfield.com. Behind him, working up and working with him, so he'll be right there to help you as well. If you're always looking to talk about other investments or maybe in the wholesaling space, check us out at wholesalingoutofthebox.com. Of course, you can reach out to anybody on this screen at the moment and personal messages. Cameron Peters worked with us over at Wholesaling and actually Full Circle Investment Group, but he runs the wholesaling, the Hopportunity Peninsula division over on the Peninsula side. So it was just getting going in Corona. So yeah, we'll get that going again, right? And I'm really looking forward to it. Did you guys have anybody else here wanted to, sign off with and say? Cameron?
I would say the only thing I would say, if I was a young military guy or gal, this is invaluable information. And because for those of you who don't know, I'm a retired Air Force guy, 22 years of service. And I don't say that to tell you how many years. I say that to say nobody told me this at the beginning. And if somebody had told me this at the beginning, I would have a larger portfolio than I do now. So if you're a young military guy or gal out there right now, don't call me. Call Dan or Alex, because they understand it far better than I do. And I've learned from them at the end when, it's too late. I have other investing strategies. So, man, if anybody had told me this at the beginning, money. That's all I got to say. So call these guys for real.
Awesome.
Shoot, I'll leave it with that.
Ashley, do you have anything specific that you want to share or talk about from tonight's meeting? You're on mute. You're on mute.
I thought I unmuted myself. Not really. Just letting you guys know that sometime in the next week, you should be seeing a survey of some kind to get feedback on these virtual meetings. It'll also have all the links and contact information for everyone and everything that we've talked about. And, just comment here or on that future survey post topics you want to see. We're still kind of deciding what topic we're going to do for the actual June Hopportunity meeting on June 30th. So if you have ideas, let us know.
Awesome. Vanessa?
Same thing. There's awesome information there. One of the questions with the guy with 10K, what he can do. You can do a lot with 10K right now, especially in the investment world, and I think it's awesome. So if you missed anything, we'll be on replay on all these pages on YouTube, and we'll have a podcast out this week as well if you just want to listen to this in the car.
Awesome. Dan?
It's all about action. Take that first step. You realize even when the worst happens, it's not that bad.
Awesome. And finally, the leader that started the whole group, Alex.
Yeah, first off, I think, I do want to mention we're going to dive into this a little more, Dan and I, with a seminar that we're going to start doing either probably bi-monthly or something like that, where we can really dive into the different strategies that are out there, the different tools that are out there for house hopping and house hacking. If you're interested, please hit us up. We are passionate about it. We have done it, and it does work. And, if anything, just look into it, man. Get into real estate when it's easy. It doesn't get easier. It's easier. The younger you are, the easier it is. Do it as soon as you can. And if you're afraid, then take it as education. So that's all I can say, guys. This is awesome. So glad to be here. So glad we actually hit this topic. house hopping and house hacking. I don't know if we've ever given it a full on, night, and I hope you guys got something out of it. And any topics that you guys want to talk about, please let us know. We're open ears, especially with all the changing environment around us. We learn from you guys. We learn from our speakers. The key that Sean keeps getting at is networking, and eventually we're gonna do this in public again. But until then, I hope this is beneficial for everybody. And thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome.
Sean, you wanna round us out?
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, always, thank you for taking the time to be here with us. You could do anything else, and you spent the past hour to almost 2 hours being here with us and hopefully learning and sharing and getting some kind of value out of this. So please, if this video is helpful, share it with somebody else in another group. And hopefully when this all comes back around and we come back to going live and meeting each other back in person, I really look forward to meeting everybody. So thank you so much for being here, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. Later.
Peace.